Foreign ministers of NATO member states are gathering in Brussels for a two-day summit. NATO's Secretary-General says it's an important milestone for European and global security. The NATO foreign ministers will be joined by their counterparts from Ukraine, Finland, Sweden, Georgia and the European Union, and Asia-Pacific partners Australia, Japan, New Zealand and South Korea. It's the first time South Korea and Japan will be taking part in a NATO meeting. Meetings are also scheduled for the G7 grouping's foreign ministers in Brussels to discuss sanctions against Russia and support for Ukraine. And we can go straight to our correspondent Rosie Burchard, who's joining me live now from Brussels. Rosie, what concrete action responses do we expect to come out of these NATO meetings in Brussels over the next couple of days?
Well, those meetings are due to start in the coming hours, and NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg says they come at a really crucial moment as this war in Ukraine rages on. He has warned that Russian troops may be resupplying and repositioning, ready to introduce a new push in southern and eastern Ukraine, perhaps in a bid to take the entire Donbas region. That's why he says he expects NATO allies to commit to providing Ukraine with even more weapons, and that's likely what they will be discussing when they meet later today. Now, NATO allies have been sending Ukraine weapons. This is not something new. However, the broad line remains the same, which is that they do not want to escalate this war any further, and that's why they say there will be no NATO boots on the ground in Ukraine and no NATO planes in the sky. NATO will not be intervening in this war, but those allies will be sending Ukraine more weapons. That's what we expect concretely to come out of this meeting, but no movement, as I said, on that line that NATO does not want to be seen as escalating this conflict.
OK, Rosie, and what about the guest list? That's notable.
Absolutely. So we're seeing these NATO inviting its Asia-Pacific partners, and we are expecting NATO allies to pledge to increase cooperation with those Asia-Pacific countries, Japan, the Republic of Korea, New Zealand and Australia. They might be increasing cooperation, for example, on arms control or on cyber security. But I think more broadly, this really points to the global implications of the war in Ukraine. It seems that these NATO allies are looking beyond NATO territory for support and for some kind of like-minded countries. It's also seen more broadly as a bid perhaps to counter China. That's something NATO allies are discussing really in terms of their broad strategic concept. We know they'll have a meeting in a few months' time in Madrid where they'll really draw out their vision for the future. In the previous document that outlined NATO's kind of plans and ambitions, China was not even mentioned. So those geopolitical contours of the world have changed very much since then. And this particular meeting with those Asia-Pacific partners invited is definitely seen as a step along that way to NATO kind of really redefining or rewriting its role for the world of today.